From high atop the battlements of Castle Curmudgeon, where by the end of this broadcast, I hope we've all discovered our inner female Australian breakdancer. Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. America and all ships at sea. Welcome to the Blast Radius. Delighted you could join us this evening. Here is your Decline of Western Civilization news roundup for the work week ending 16 August. Dateline Fake News Fantasyland, Monday, 12 August. So, you remember toward the end of last week when seemingly every fake news performance artist all across the fruited plain was trumpeting this report from Axios, yes, Axios, those paragons of ethical down-the-middle journalism that said violent crime is down nationwide and you should not believe your lying eyes and ears? Because the Biden-Harris administration, despite all appearances to the contrary, is really, really awesome at fighting crime and keeping bad guys off the streets. And the country's actually far better off than it was under the bleeding heart, soft-on-crime Donald Trump. They acted like this report was really incredibly great news for the Democrats. Hell, I haven't seen the fake news performance artist community that excited since the day they got to stop pretending they like Joe Biden. If that was Christmas, this was like an above-average birthday, let's say. Except, there's another shoe that's going to drop, isn't there? And I bet it's going to take the wind right out of the sails of this bullshit narrative that we have tried so hard to cook up. Because it turns out there was just one small, little, teensy-weensy, totally inadvertent oversight in that Axios report. Yeah, those numbers, they didn't include New York City. Whoopsie! Don't you hate it when you're trying to do honorable, ethical, honest journalisming, and some totally unforeseen, unintentional thing happens that makes the whole enterprise go tits up? So yeah, when you actually include the violent crime statistics from the biggest city in the country that is currently a post-apocalyptic wasteland of crime and human suffering, those national numbers don't look anywhere near so rosy and optimistic. In fact, it almost looks like we're sliding off the civilizational cliff into nihilism and anarchy because our big cities are run by people who think enforcing the law is dreadfully unfashionable, and criminals are the ones with all the rights. But is there a valuable lesson we can take away from this story? Well, why yes, I think there is. If you're in local government and you are really bad at your job and everything sucks a lot more now than it did when you took over, but you want to make it look like everything's going just peachy, just don't report any statistics that might reflect badly on the quality of your leadership because, like they say, math is racist anyway. Dateline Sydney, Tuesday, 13 August. The father-in-law of Australian Olympic breakdancing sensation Rachel Gunn, better known to us, her loving and devoted fans, as Ray Gunn, put on his white armor and jumped on his white stallion and did his best bit of white knighting this week when he took to social media and very sternly informed the internet that it needs to stop mocking poor Ray Gunn for whatever that thing was that she did on that stage in Paris. I won't call it breakdancing because I've seen people breakdance before, and it didn't look anything like that. If you asked me to give my best description of what that alleged dance routine actually looked like to my uncultured layman's eyes, I'd say it looked like a drunken baby otter trying to escape from a plastic six-pack ring. But these are how the rules work in participation ribbon world, ladies and gentlemen. And apparently the Olympics, well, they are just another participation ribbon event now, so all of us old codgers better just get used to our new bold reality. Because seriously, is there any better exemplar of the participation ribbon philosophy and lifestyle than our girl Ray Gunn? If you had to distill everything that's wrong and stupid about telling kids they can be anything they want to be and giving them awards when they've achieved absolutely nothing, and put it all into one human being, I here tonight humbly submit that Ray Gunn is that human being. And full disclosure, I didn't even have any idea that people still breakdanced. I thought that was a thing black kids in LA used to do in the 80s and it died out at least 30 years ago. But don't nobody tell that to Ray Gunn. God damn it. Ray Gunn was an uncoordinated white girl from the mean streets of Sydney and she decided for some reason she wanted to be a breakdancer. Except she wasn't any good at breakdancing. So, in a sane world, this is normally the point at which her friends and family would have said, Rachel, maybe the breakdancing thing isn't going to work out and you should focus on something else that you're less terrible at. But goddammit, that's not the way things work in participation ribbon world. In participation ribbon world, A brave, young, terrible breakdancer like Reagan can channel the mockery and derision of the Sydney underground breakdance community. Yes, apparently there is such a thing. Into a doctoral degree. That's right, Reagan is an actual doctor of breakdancing. And I had a chance to read some selections from her doctoral dissertation the other day. Let's just say it's everything you would expect, and then some. So, instead of sane people world where teenage Reagan would have been told, sorry, you suck at this, maybe find a new hobby, in participation ribbon world, Reagan can take this thing she sucks at and turn it not only into a life's vocation, but a platform on which to become an Olympic athlete, where she can perform a routine that looks like a blindfolded one-legged wallaby trying to escape from a burning car. Bless your heart. Dear Reagan, you are an inspiration to us all. Dateline London, Wednesday, 14 August. Well, things have got a little bit less fiery in the UK this week, but if I am Sir Keir Starmer's Labour government, I probably wouldn't be breathing too many sighs of relief at this point. Especially not when I see poll numbers like these, which draw your own conclusions, I guess, but from where this reporter is sitting, when a country isn't riding the knife edge between maintaining civil society and plunging off the cliff into anarchy and madness, you don't get numbers like these. 39% of respondents agreed with the statement. When it comes to the refugee problem, violence is sometimes the only means that citizens have to get the attention of British politicians. 34% agreed that attacks on refugee accommodations are sometimes necessary to make it clear to politicians that we have a refugee problem. 32% agreed that hostility toward refugees themselves is sometimes justified, even if such hostility ends in violence. 36% felt that xenophobic acts of violence are defensible if they result in fewer refugees being settled in your town. Now, I ain't no fancy social anthropologist or nothing, but this seems almost like the sort of thing that might inevitably happen when you spend decade after decade after decade beating people over the head with something they didn't ask for and don't want, when you've showed them there is no redress to be found at the ballot box because both of the crooked-ass parties are in on the scam, when you have no response to their very reasonable questions and concerns except to say you're a racist or you're xenophobic, when their quality of life continues to spiral downward, when they have become the most oppressed and marginalized majority population group this side of apartheid-era black South Africans, when every legitimate legal avenue of recourse has produced nothing whatever, is it any big surprise when people start to conclude that justice might only be achievable through extrajudicial means? But don't you worry, Mr. and Mrs. Britain, because Sir Keir and the Stormtroopers have got the whole thing sorted. They're just going to start chucking people into the big house for writing naughty tweets that evince unapproved modes of thought. They just sentenced a guy, a 40-year-old guy, the other day, no prior criminal record, to 3 years in the clink for half a dozen tweets in which he mentioned, by my count, not one single word about anybody's race. He didn't say anything that was more offensive than, I don't like Muslims and mass migration sucks. Gosh, I just can't imagine why the people in a country where shit like that happens might be losing faith in their institutions. It is a real mystery. Dateline Washington, Thursday, 15 August. It's a bold move, really, when you're the first San Francisco socialist ever nominated for the presidency, and the first actual policy proposal you roll out and put on the table is honest-to-God Soviet-style central government price controls on foodstuffs. But then, the California cackler, she is a bold gal. You might call it playing up to the stereotype. She calls it chucking nice juicy slabs of red meat to the base. But it's red meat that's made out of soybeans and unicorn farts, obviously, because if you threw actual red meat to Democrat voters, you probably would get arrested for a hate crime. But yeah, almost as if she was trying to lean into every stereotype you have ever heard about Democrats never having any ideas that don't involve top-down, brute force, direct government, central intervention in everything. Kamala wants to have the price of a head of lettuce and a pound of chicken breast be set by some friendly bureaucrats in our nation's capital. Now, will they have to establish a whole new bureaucracy to handle this thing? Oh, I'm just kidding, of course they will. Silly question anyway. Maybe they'll give it a fun name like the People's Bureau for Equitable Pricing of Borscht and Vodka. No? Too on the nose? Maybe for Kamala's next policy proposal, they'll say everybody is required to wear furry hats and play chess in the park on Saturday. But this all raises a series of fascinating, some might say troubling questions about the people who are running the vice president's campaign and who would be, presumably, running the United States government in the event that she is successfully installed in the presidency. For example, when they're kicking policy ideas around the room and somebody says, well, I know, let's have the federal government set the price of groceries. Is there nobody else in the room who is historically literate enough to say, yeah, maybe let's not do that? We'll be the butt of a whole hell of a lot of Soviet Union jokes if we try and roll that one out? I mean, is every single person in that room an under 35 ideologue DEI hire who thinks history began in 2004? Because it kind of seems that way. Are the old white guys they brought in from the Obama campaign so marginalized that they just have to sit in the corner and not say anything? I think I can actually picture that without all that much trouble. And then, even if the policy idea makes it out of the room, you've still got to put it to the candidate, don't you? The candidate who is 10 years older than I am and thus should remember the Cold War even more clearly than I do? She doesn't know it's a Soviet thing she's proposing? But hey, maybe I've got this all wrong and she'll give a detailed explanation during her next lengthy sit-down interview. Dateline Crazy Town, Friday, 16 August. Well, as much as I hate to stay on the same topic 2 days in a row, I just don't think I can let this one pass, frankly. Did you happen to see that terrible, cringe-inducing fake interview that Kamala and Tim Walz did with each other? Now, who was this for? Unclear. What was it supposed to achieve? Unclear. How many times did I cringe or facepalm during the 10-minute video? Didn't keep track, if I'm being honest, but it's a double-digit number, to be sure. But I think my favorite thing of all was how Tim Walz managed, even within the context of this frivolous exercise in pointless artifice, to cook up another lie about his own background. No pun intended. But it would have been a good pun because it's a lie about food. You see, the marching orders they sent Tim Walz into this thing with, they basically must have said, just go in there and act like a bland, goofy, milquetoast white dude. Really lean into it. Dare to be boring. And they're awkwardly pretending to make small talk, and Walz, when the subject turns to tacos, he goes, yeah, I'm a white guy tacos, ground beef and cheese, black pepper on top, or some shit like that. And then he goes a step further and says, I'm not really a spice guy. Because he's probably got the director in his ear yelling, come on, Tim, give me blander and whiter, damn you. Now this all seems innocent enough, right? There's no kind of lie you could possibly get caught in just from this dumb bit of banter, right? Except, whoopsie, turns out there is, because as it happens, back in 2016, when he was just a freshman congressman, Tim Walz entered a congressional cook-off in which the dish he prepared was, drumroll please, turkey taco hot dish with chili powder, paprika, onion powder, and garlic powder, which all seems pretty wildly exotic when you're just a goofy white guy who never tasted anything spicier than salt and pepper. Too bad he didn't bake a cake in the shape of a Command Master Sergeant's rank insignia. That would have been freaking awesome. That's just about all I've got for you fine people this week. I'm going to toss it over now to our second most ruggedly handsome co-host, who's not even here, but I already wrote this, so I might as well read it. The man whose tireless advocacy got freestyle hominid dominance added to the Olympic program for Los Angeles 2028. The one and only your friend and mine, who, again, isn't here, Mr. Caucasian Sasquatch.